All right. We're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas podcast with Mr. Howard Makler, founder and CEO of Innovation Refunds. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you, Nick. Really, it's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to be on your podcast.
Yeah. So, I was reading about you beforehand. You've built a bunch of businesses and, Innovation Refunds is massive. So if you're up for it, give us a couple of minutes on where it came from and, where you're going with it, as much as you can share anyway.
Sure. So, lifetime business owner. I don't make a good employee. I make a better employer, I've learned.
Yeah.
I've had a number of really successful businesses, of course, some not so successful. Anybody that's had 100% success means they probably have only had one business, right? But this business, it was very interesting. So I was visiting with a friend of mine who owns an insurance company, and he was very happy that day. And he showed me checks from the Treasury that totaled about $300,000.
Yeah.
And I said, "What, did you overpay your taxes? Why did you get back so much money from the government?" And he said, no, he had invested money developing technology for his insurance company, and it qualified for R&D, research and development. And I said, "What is that?" I've heard the term, but I didn't understand that it was a tax savings associated with research and development or research and experimentation. And so I learned about this and I became very intrigued. And what I found out is that these tax breaks are taken advantage of by the Amazons of the world every day.
Yeah.
Right? No surprise that, of
They have
Amazon,
the resources,
Microsoft,
right?
yeah, they have resources and they know how to save money on taxes, but the average business owner doesn't. And so when I learned about this program, I was fascinated, and it ultimately led to me creating Innovation Refunds, to take advantage, to help small and medium businesses to tap into this money that the government makes available. After I started, I learned about a program called ERC. All these acronyms, right? The Employee Retention Credit. It was a COVID era program designed to reward businesses that kept employees on payroll during COVID. Because if you lay off employees, it's very expensive for the government to take these people onto the unemployment status. And so this program was created, and I scaled very quickly to take advantage of that. We since have served 27,000 businesses.
Crazy.
And we helped them to realize over $6 billion in money back from the federal government. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, we talk about creating value. There's a hard number there, and it's real. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Part of the problem with these programs is that they're very costly to take advantage of. And so if you're a small business owner and your accountant says, you might qualify for this thing called R&D, but it's going to cost you $50,000, $75,000 to do a study to find out how much you'll qualify for. Most business owners are really not. Yeah, exactly. And so we created a success fee compensation. So we share a percentage of the savings that we're able to generate for businesses. And this ERC was such a great success that we're now going to increase the offering to all other credits, all incentives, even lawsuits. You'd be amazed how many lawsuits there are every year, class action lawsuits. People in the food business, there's chicken settlements and beef settlements, and I mean there's so many settlements out there. And how do you tap into these programs? How do you find out if you've been overpaying on your property taxes or your sales tax? Somebody has to audit it, and it's going to cost a significant amount of money to figure all that out. And so we do all of that on the come. We don't get any money up front. We share on the back end of the value that we're able to create. And
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, thanks, Nick. It's been a great formula. We have a lot of happy customers. I'm
Yeah.
super grateful that we've been, the best part is I get these updates from our clients on what they're doing. And I saw one just yesterday, and basically the business owner said, "I'm finally debt free thanks to the help of your company and this money that we were able to receive. We were, for the first time in a decade, our company is essentially debt free, and
That's
it makes
massive.
me feel so good."
Yeah, especially in this economy. That's awesome. Yeah, good timing for the show too. We'll try to get this one out a little early because I think everyone's thinking about this now, and our audience is entirely business owners, so it's a good fit. Really grateful to have you in the room for this one.
Yeah, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you.
So we talked about this beforehand, but format is we're gonna reveal a really, really bad business idea, which I'm sure you've experienced numerous times over the course of your career. This one's probably like amongst the top really bad ideas. You and I will make fun of it for a couple minutes, and when we run out of really bad things to say, we'll put our thinking hats on and see if we can turn it into something potentially smart or viable. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I
All
love
right.
it.
All right. So let's see what we got today. This is my favorite part because we don't know what we're going to get. Hopefully, it's good. So, it's an automated emoji based customer service platform. So, implement a customer service platform that responds to customer queries with emojis instead of text. So, I think what this is doing is it's trying to insert emotion into automated customer support, but doing so by eliminating text, which is probably why it's a bad idea. I mean, you guys have supported 27,000 companies. You can't really provide good service by putting a robot that doesn't emote in between the customer and the business, right?
No, no. I guess if I was going to try to salvage this somehow, I would. What I would say is that maybe it'll work if it's AI based, and now you essentially are fooling the business, the customer into thinking they're talking to a human.
Yeah,
Um, but otherwise, yeah, the auto generated emoji sounds a little.
it's going to fall flat. Are you guys using AI at all in your business yet? And is it on the service side or is it totally back end?
Yeah, no, we it's mostly on the service side,
Oh
but
wow.
we are beginning to look at ways to implement it across the whole company.
Hmm. It's I mean, it's a powerful tech. You have practical experience with it, so you're probably a little further along than just my toying around. But from my experience so far, it's been largely a referencing tool. So, like a really, really smart Google, but I still find that when it gets into nuance, it winds up missing things. Are you guys
Well,
seeing any
it's
of that?
well, I don't know. It was interesting. I was reading the news, and
Yeah.
one of Trump's former lawyers got into trouble because he used Chat GPT to help him with a case,
Yeah.
and it created fake case law.
Hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know that it could do that.
Yeah. Well, just a referencing tool. Like generative is just combining things that it thinks relate. But it's so new, there's no governing body behind it, right? So it's going to go where it
No,
goes.
and we have this false belief that, well, if AI is saying it, then at least it's referencing facts and it's accurate and it's truthful.
Yeah.
It lies like a rug.
Yeah.
It,
And
I mean, it's
it doesn't know that it's lying either. It thinks it's
and it
combined
doesn't
something
know that
good.
it's lying either.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I don't know what's scarier, having a lying AI or a lying AI that doesn't know it's lying.
Yeah. Well, both are negatives, right? I think coming back to this bad idea, yeah, I think what it is touching on is that customer service needs to evolve. But at least in my short experience, I found that's the most valuable part of the business. Like, it doesn't even matter what value you're delivering to the customer. If you make them feel good and earn their trust and deliver on what you say, you can make even a low value delivery really worthwhile. I mean, have you found
Yeah.
the same?
Yeah, I mean, this is really sales 101. For some reason, sales has a bad name.
Yeah,
Yeah, people think of salespeople as, someone that sells ice to an Eskimo,
yeah,
right? And a real salesperson would say, I'm not going to sell ice to Eskimos. They don't need ice. Maybe they need an igloo, but
Hmm.
they don't need ice. So a good salesperson really will be authentic and only deliver products and services that they genuinely believe have value to that business owner or to the customer.
Hmm.
And so it's certainly a lot of why we were successful
Hmm.
was we used actual people
Hmm.
that would get on the phone, talk to the business owner,
That's massive.
and customer service is a big deal.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
companies need to spend resources
Yeah.
to have excellent customer
Yeah,
service.
I think it's timely that we're talking about AI because I know a lot of people, is particularly engineer-based leaders, are eyes wide open about a bot or a machine replacing all that headcount. But if I had to guess, I think the opposite is going to happen. I think because AI is moving so fast on the purely objective basis, it's going to place a premium on salespeople and service professionals that have interpersonal skills. So companies like yours that put a real person on the phone are going to grow a lot faster than those that try to automate everything like a really bad idea, putting it into a bot or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. In the sales cycle,
Yeah,
human beings are a critical piece of the equation in order to maximize success.
yeah. When you guys got started, I mean, was it you at the forefront on day one, or did you get a team together to kind of test or pilot the service beforehand? Like, how did the ice
Well,
breaking happen?
so I'm writing a book actually on this, on how to
Yes.
how an entrepreneur does what it is that they do,
Yeah.
and the first step is proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to prove your idea is viable.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, you have to roll up your sleeves and you got to go do it yourself. So in this case and in all the businesses that I've started, I actually started selling it first myself.
Yeah.
My wife actually joined me. She was an expert in insurance sales, and so she was able to join. I brought in my first partner, he joined. And so in the early days, you're really doing everything. And you have to, because you have to prove the concept. So one of the things that I learned is that selling free is one of the hardest things in the world to sell.
Yeah, because there's no commitment on the other side, right?
There's so many obstacles to it.
Yeah.
But when you're selling something that essentially is free, it's very,
Hmm.
very hard to sell.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, we'll have to imagine too at your growth to 1,000 people from you doing it yourself just a couple years beforehand
It,
is incredible.
yeah,
Being able to make that
incredible.
replicable and then install people into it is really kind of a magical experience to be a part of.
Yeah, it really was. Management is an important skill set.
Hmm. Have
Uh,
you your other companies? I was just looking online. You've had a few, but nothing at this scale yet, right? Like nothing over four or
um,
500.
well, I mean, before this, I started a real estate investment trust, a REIT.
Mm.
It was a $1 billion public offering.
Yeah.
It is currently traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
Hmm.
So I've had other large businesses.
Hmm.
Prior to that, I had a business called Howie's Game Shack. Howie's Game Shack, we had 9 locations. Each location was about 10,000 square feet and had about 250 computers and Xboxes. This isn't like an old school arcade. There was nothing like what I built.
Hmm.
And so we had um, all in, I would say we had about 400 employees.
So wow, so really close. So you've been on this
Yeah,
ride from zero to hundreds before. So you've proven it, you've made it replicable, you've built a management staff that can kind of scale
yeah.
elastically. That's. Did you use a lot of that when Innovation Refunds was getting off the ground, or were you having to kind of reinvent a lot of the processes that you put out as you went?
Both,
Yeah.
both. I mean, I had the ability to do this, but
Hmm.
this company, I had to build all new systems, all new procedures. Everything had to be custom built for this company.
Yeah.
But I brought obviously all the experience that I have. The person who runs the company day to day, his name is Rodney Rad. Rodney has been my friend for decades.
Mm-hmm.
His brother created Tinder,
No
founder of
way.
Tinder.
Small
Yeah,
world.
yeah, and Rodney's fabulous. So Rodney, he's helped me on my last three businesses to do all of the financial modeling.
Mm-hmm. So you got the
So
team.
yeah, my attorney, he's my chief legal officer. He's been with me for, oh God, I think I hired him first. I hate to say it, 3 decades ago.
We won't tell. I mean, you look great. We're not going to ask age numbers. It's what you produce, right? And you've done a couple
Well,
lifetimes worth already.
I started my first company at 13.
Yeah. Wow. What was that?
It was called Genie Microware.
Mm.
It was a computer company. I sold software. This was when software was sold in 3-ring binders.
Yeah, it's literally software, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in those days you received pages of floppy disks.
And how did you end the business? So you started selling software. How did the story like lapse or evolve into phase two?
Well, I was 13. Uh
Yeah.
ultimately ultimately I ended up going into a different business. I ended up going into real estate, which was my father's business. So my first company was
Mhm.
in computers. My second company was in real estate, and then I went back to computers.
Well, and then you went to gaming, which is kind of both, and then you went back to real estate with the
Exactly.
trust, right? And then innovation refunds is more of like a business support, with a little bit of software, right?
Well, we don't
There's
sell
got to be some
software. We
systems
use
in the
software.
machine.
We don't sell software.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're right. It's a
yeah.
business support, and we're going to be
Mhm.
expanding into other areas of support. Right now, money is tight
Mhm.
for business owners. It's almost
Mhm.
impossible to get your hands on money. So
Yeah,
we're going to be offering some lending products, as well as getting into just some other
awesome.
unique areas that are of interest to us. And then I had one of the first Apple computers,
Mhm.
one of the very first Apple IIs. I turned it on, and all of my TVs stopped working. It scrambled all the TVs
How?
because the computer was not shielded. It was one
Over
of the
my head.
very first Apple IIs. Well, if you look inside a computer, there's a metal case essentially.
Yeah.
The metal case is what prevents the RF signal from scrambling your TV.
Hmm.
And so, you know what I did? I was 15.
Did you build a
I
case?
called Steve Jobs.
No way.
Yeah, I called Steve Jobs. I was in Menlo Park, which was next to Palo Alto. I called up. I said, I want to talk to Steve. And they said, he's busy right now. I said, I'll call back. I called back, and the receptionist said, you called earlier. I told him you were going to call back. Hold on. She put me through to him. And he asked what the problem was. I told him. He apologized. He asked where I was located. And he said, I'm going to dispatch a technician to change your case out and fix your problem. And he did.
You sent someone to your house and you talked to him. You ever talk to him
I
again, or was that the only time?
only time. I learned later in life, as I was learning about Steve Jobs, that it was, the company Hewlett Packard.
Hmm.
Well, that was based in Palo Alto, and I guess it Steve. I don't remember which one he called, but he looked up in the Palo Alto phone book and found the phone number for one of them.
Hmm.
Called, that person answered and was very helpful to him, and so he made it a point that he would not overly screen his calls. Now, I'm sure many years later it was a lot harder to get him on the phone,
Yeah.
but he had that philosophy. And I guess that's one thing I would just say to your listeners is
Yeah.
that if there is somebody who is in your field or a field you want to get into and they're really successful, odds are they will talk to you.
That's just
It's
mind-boggling. Like having the
mind
confidence at
boggling, but
14,
it's true.
you calling Steve Jobs. Yeah, that's why we'll find a public phone number for you and put it on the show. I won't do that. I won't do that. But
I was at a real estate convention right about the same age, and my father pointed to a gentleman across the room. He said, "You see that guy over there?" I said, "Yeah, that's Eddie DeBartolo." I'm like, okay. So well, he owns the San Francisco 49ers, among other things at the time.
Yeah.
My father said, "Go over there and meet him." I said,
Jeez.
"Well, all right, what do I do?" He said, "Just go meet him." I said, "All right." So I walked over and said, "Mr. DeBartolo, I'm Howard Makler. I wanted to introduce myself and meet you." Stuck my hand out. He shook my hand and asked me a lot of questions.
Well, that's great. So, I mean, you learned young. You can approach these guys the right way and create opportunity. And, I'm sure you created a ton of value for Steve and letting him know about the shield issue. I bet you that went right into product after your conversation.
For sure.
Yeah,
He knew right away. And yeah, I bet it did.
that's amazing. That's amazing. It's awesome. I mean, this storied background, I think the theme of the show overall for us to spill the beans, right? There's so much emphasis placed on the idea. And, throughout your background, you're talking about these instances where you took action. It wasn't really
Yeah.
the idea, is the fact that you called Steve or the fact that you reached out directly to the company to buy the software at a wholesale level. The fact that after scaling a business to 400 plus staff, you went out and sold Innovation Refunds yourself. It's all action driven.
Yeah.
And I think that get missed by a lot of folks. They feel like if I have this amazing idea, customers are just going to show up and I'll scale like crazy. But, it happens the other way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I was thinking before we got on the call today. There's a guy that I met on LinkedIn, and he sells dog water.
Water specifically for dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I thought it was a stupid idea when I first heard it. Like, it's. I mean, he puts a label on it for dogs,
Yeah.
and then that's the water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's successful and he's growing. And he posted on LinkedIn. He says, "I don't sell water for dogs. I sell a delivery system for dogs, a delivery system."
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be going into other directions. Now he introduced coconut water,
For dogs.
electrolytes for your dog, and
Yeah.
right. And so, what I would say is sometimes ideas might sound like I thought that was a stupid idea when I first heard it, and yet he's turning it into a success.
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes things aren't what they appear to be.
Mm-hmm. It's about the execution. It's about the energy, the willingness to make that call. And you're proving
Yeah.
it in the background and the result of your life. I think, which is amazing.
But some things can't be overcome. One of my friends invited me to be the president of a renewable energy company.
Mm-hmm.
I invested a bunch of money, and at the time he had bought technology from a gentleman who had passed away, bought it from the children, and it was for vertical access wind turbines. So like turbines,
Yeah.
they go like this. Well, these go like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and we were putting them on buildings
Mm-hmm.
like Best Buys.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a great idea, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. Was it just the
It
return on
doesn't work.
power?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So when we started this thing, my partner at the time, great guy named Marvin Winkler. It's easy to stay friends with somebody when you make money. It's a lot harder when you lose money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And Marvin is still one of my dearest friends. And his daughter came down. We had like a laboratory set up where we were doing experiments on these vertical access wind turbines. And his daughter was about 16, and she goes, "Daddy, it's not going to work." And we were like, it's like, "Sweetheart, you're 16.
Yeah.
Like, explain, enlighten me." She goes, "It's physics. Physics won't work."
Mm-hmm.
You know what? She was right.
Yeah. At 16.
You know why those windmills are so large? Because they have to be.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's a thing called physics.
Yeah.
You can't make a little windmill
Produce
generate
a lot of power. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't.
Yep. 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 I mean, that's.
But we thought you could.
You tried and you learned. And I'm sure, outside of the result of the business, what you learned going through that process probably helped you grow even faster with
Yeah.
your current business. So
Yeah, and so but it's an interesting comparison between something like a wind turbine where there really is such thing as laws of physics.
yeah.
There's reasons why things need to be certain sizes and you need certain wind speeds, and that's kind of one topic. Where another topic is marketing water to dogs.
I know.
And so it's also an interesting discussion about what is a bad idea.
Hmm.
Some things seem like bad ideas, but they're not. Other
Hmm.
things seem like good ideas, and they're not.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect segue back to our idea. So if we look at what they're trying to do, I'll read it again. So automated emoji based customer service, implement a customer service platform that responds to customer queries with emojis instead of text. It seems so. First of all, I think we agreed it's a bad idea because removing text makes an already impersonal customer experience even more impersonal, which is just like that's going to fail.
Can you imagine how pissed you'd be if you just got an
I
emoji
know.
for? You'd
I
be
know.
so upset. Like, what is this?
Uh,
Are they like, you know?
yeah, yeah. I'm experiencing this issue, and you get the thumbs up back. Just
Yeah,
great. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's
Like I feel like I'm getting snubbed.
yeah, it's not going to work. But I think the intent is to inject some kind of emotion into something that's not there. I think that's why your phone service probably works so well because it's a real human. So there's some kind of
Yep,
empathy there. Um,
yep.
can you think of anything like? Is there a way to bring some of that empathy into a more automated service experience?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
There's on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I saw an example of a Tesla scheduler. Okay, so it's this. You're talking to this person that, as I recall, it had a British accent
Hmm.
or a South African accent, and this person calls you and says, "I see you were interested in the Tesla, and I'd like to see if I can set up a time for you to come in and take one out." It was all AI,
The entire
and
call was yeah.
the entire call was AI, and I was blown away. I mean, it sounded. My only critique is that there was a little bit of a delay.
Because
I
it has
mean,
to
not
process. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's right. You and I don't really need processing time. It's just our brains are that fast
Yeah.
where we can process in real time. This was like somebody needed to pause for a second or two,
Yeah.
but frankly, it didn't come across as AI.
Hmm. Yeah.
It
It
did not.
sounded authentic. All right.
It definitely sounded authentic.
All right.
So I think that the rules are changing very quickly.
Hmm. So you think if you can find a way to capture some of that empathy, even if it is in software, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, it still has a better shot at being successful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think emoji it has a good idea, but it's lacking context. It makes something cold actually even colder. Um, but I think maybe that's why Tesla's using voice AI specifically because they know that you can't do this in text. You can't actually emote or relate or empathize with somebody um, through something two dimensional. There needs to be kind of another undertone.
Yeah, and as I'm just recalling the dialogue that the AI bot had with the person, it seemed very relatable.
Uh-huh.
It seemed like you were talking to a friend of yours, not an AI.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the surprising things about AI is that even in this early generation of it, it can really sound very authentic.
Yeah.
We were talking about how it's also able to fabricate fully certain things.
Uh-huh.
I mean, just make up things on its own, which is a little bit scary,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah, super
Say,
scary.
right? What's more concerning, a lying AI or a lying AI that doesn't know it's lying,
I
as we
know.
were talking about earlier?
I know.
I don't know.
This conversation comes full circle. This is pretty perfect. I think. Um, Thank you so much for sharing all that background. I think you really proved the point that execution and action are the keys, and you've done it so many times. Like it's a formula that people can follow. When's the book coming out? Is that the best way for folks to keep track of you?
Sure. It's still a few months out, and really super excited about everything that we're doing.
Well, this is perfect. That's who's listening to us today. So I really appreciate you doing this show. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and evaluating this ridiculous idea with me. Yeah, I think it'll create a ton of value and perpetuity for everyone who listens.
I
Um,
love it.